Okay, as I said, we're going to be starting with the Epistle of James, and we're going to do a quick look at the outline that's been provided. And without going into a lot of discussion, I'm just going to do the heading, and then you can kind of look at the individual elements of it. It's practically a page-by-page kind of a thing. So the purpose of testing. Today, I've been tested. Today, Ken's been tested as well. You folks have all been tested in your life. We go through things that we wish they would be different, and some of us are able to blame Murphy. However, we don't know whether Murphy is God-inspired or Satan-inspired. I don't know which. But sometimes things just don't work out the way we would hope that they would.
Is Murphy's like Murphy's Law?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything good in life is either evil or
well, that's part of it, yeah. Yeah, the law itself reads to the effect that if anything can go wrong, it will, and at the worst possible time. That's Murphy's Law. But Murphy's Law certainly isn't God's law, is it?
Don't mess with Miss Murphy.
I don't ever want to meet her. Yes, sir.
Where do we ask Pastor Carlos for this packet, or how does that work?
How would that work?
Same with
yeah, if
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, rather than just making an entire copy of a 50 or 60 page syllabus, 30, 40, 50, yeah, it's about 50 some pages that may or may not be used dramatically. Either you can ask the front office about that and see how that works, or you could look for particular elements. But everything's going to be on the screen. I will ask for you to read from the screen because I want to make sure we're all getting the same version, King James, which is what Dr. Welch teaches. So the purpose of testing, of course, is to strengthen us generically, and that'll be explored as we go through this. Temptation. Has anybody had temptation in their life?
Mom.
One of the common litanies today is if you have temptation, don't struggle with it, give into it, and you'll be fine. Well, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. Some of the temptations that we have, we should not be accepting graciously. Doers of the word. I know of a lot of people, and they're door knockers or bicycle riders that claim to know the word. But are they in fact doers of the word? If you're saved and you're in this room and you're not a doer of the word, then this lesson's definitely for you. But we'll go into a lot of detail on that. Pure religion. Empty religion and pure religion. The two little headings there. One's void of result and the other one is unattainable. We'll find out what that means when we get to it. The sin of prosopolemsius. Bonus points for anybody that learns how to say that and can do it without hesitation. Prosopolemsius. That's your last shot at it. You got to go close, but not quite. No cigar.
I'm just copying what you said.
Part of what I was doing, one of the things that I'm sometimes challenged by is when I see transliterations. When I see transliterations, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it in the Greek. Because that Omicron and that Omega, and that Epsilon and that Eta. It makes a difference. And it's been so many years since I've actually worked with Dr. Welch in terms of doing edits and things like that I can't remember whether the letter, the American or the Arabic letter O means O or Ah. I don't, So I had to print out some of the Greek, at least for the first several pages, so I could try to get through today. And we'll see how that works too. Works judged by the law of liberty. I'm not saying that they are. That's just the title of it. We'll get into that in the lessons. Faith and works both must be possessed. You must have faith, but then you must also have works. Okay? Part 1 and part 2 apparently there. Consistency in the Christian life. Not everyone is to be a teacher. So not everybody has to be a teacher. And some folks who have no particular knowledge but have read the Bible, claim to be experts on the Bible, okay. However, with so many different versions of the Bible out there, with so many different interpretations and understandings of what those particular versions say, that person may not be as expert as he or she thinks he is. You know, there are different Bibles out there. There is something called a New World Translation, and those of you who know about that group of people that participate in the activity that uses the New World Translation, you know that it's, I won't say it's mostly bogus, but mostly bogus. I will say it. And then we have the other one where there's 71 books in their particular Bible, and we got 66. Well, okay, what did we like lose a few, or did they like add a few? And that's not even a consistent statement. You can't say it either way because they're books, different titles, whatever. So anyway, this deals with consistency, and that is not consistency what I was just alluding to. Godly wisdom of the believer. I kind of want to underscore that word godly. You know, it almost seems like it needs to be more bolded than the whole thing, you know. But the old sin nature, I think you folks have had plenty of teaching on that thing called the old sin nature. Katargazomai is something on the inside working its way to the outside. We just have it. You know, and points for the ones that can say katargazomai. I think you got that one down pat, right? You got it down pat. And there's probably a reason for that. No, just kidding. Imperatives of the Christian life. An imperative is something that you have to do. It's imperative. By the way, I want you guys, any of you guys have some military experience. I wasn't AWOL today. I was failure to repair. Failure to repair is not AWOL. You go from failure to repair, and then if you still don't show up, then you become AWOL, and then after 30 days, you become what? No, you're FUBAR when you started. No, then you become a deserter at the 30-day mark. I used to work in personnel, so I kind of know some of those things.
I saw that. That's Greek, right, for
what?
deserter?
It's Greek for what? That's Greek for thank God that they don't have firing squads anymore. Okay. My brother in his limited career in the Air Force, and I sort of make a joke about it. He's dead now, so he can't contest it anyway. But he made one strike 3 times. Yeah, think about that.
One straight to get 10.
You know. He went from sleek sleeve to one stripe, back to sleek sleeve to one stripe, back to sleek sleeve. You know. He also was a resident of something that the Air Force doesn't have anymore, and that was called a stockade. In the Navy, it's called a brig. In the Navy, it's called a brig.
Brig.
You know. Yep. Anyway. Okay. Where am I here? Imperatives of the Christian life. Yeah, things you must do. Okay, warnings concerning the Christian life. We are to depend upon God. Stop complaining and be patient. Stop complaining and be patient. Yeah. Yeah. We're all okay with that, right?
I'm guilty of that like every day.
We're going to talk about that quite a bit. Various admonitions concerning oaths, afflict. Huh?
You skipped one.
Did I?
Yeah, the one before that.
Stop complaining and be patient. Okay. All right, then we got the snivellers and the whiners that go way beyond complaining. Okay. All right, various admonitions concerning oaths, affliction, cheerfulness, and sickness. Effectual, fervent prayer. Effectual, fervent prayer. Not just fervent prayer, but effectual. Okay, covering a multitude of sins, and then the ubiquitous conclusion. Yes, but we don't have to get it done in either 10 weeks or 17 weeks. Pardon me? No, my philosophy is pretty much
2 weeks.
when I'm done.
2 weeks?
That's right.
I don't know.
We're done.
I don't know.
We're done.
I don't know. If I get the dialogue I'm getting today, it's probably going to be a long time, you
Are
know.
you an Eagle fan?
But that's a good thing. But I like dialogue. I like people to interject. I like what?
Are you an Eagle fan?
Am I?
You're like an Eagle?
I am utterly, completely, irrevocably, and inextricably a non-fan.
Okay.
Anybody understand what that means?
Yeah,
Those are
you
big
don't
words.
have a team.
But he's from the Philly area, so.
If I had grown up right according to, then I would probably be an Eagles fan and a Phillies fan. And interesting, my son is a, who's in the Air Force, is a, what do you call the one over there in Pittsburgh? Steelers. Yeah, he's a Steelers fan. Yeah, gets a lot of flack for that, you know. Especially because he lives in Maryland. Besides, I don't know whether there's a team from Maryland or not. I doubt it, but and I don't even know.
You got Maryland Geese.
Huh? Okay. All right. Well, I don't have my usual 16-point font from which to read, so we're at yeah, that's where we are. So there were two apostles named James. James, the brother of John, the son of Zebedee. And the other apostle named James was the son of Alphaeus.
Isn't James the brother of Jesus also?
Now wait, you're jumping ahead there. You're jumping ahead. You know, give me a moment. You know. Most scholars are in agreement that neither of these men were the writer of this epistle. Most scholars agree that James, the half-brother of Jesus, was the writer. Okay? And then you have the scripture references there. Jesus appeared to him after his resurrection. 1 Corinthians there. He was present in Acts 1:14. He was a leader in the Jerusalem church. He moderated the council dealing with the Gentile believers in Antioch. He was a very conservative Jewish believer, but quite tolerant of Gentiles. This letter was the first epistle. Let me see. Let me pause for a moment and look at the copy on the board. Okay. Yeah, did you notice, Ken, how that went to an Arial font instead of a Times New Roman?
Yeah.
That was one of the issues with it.
That's the only area.
Oh no. There's a few others, but those are administrative things, and they don't affect my ability to teach nor your ability to learn. Okay. I can't read it that way either. So, okay. This letter was the first epistle in the New Testament and was written between 45 and 50 A.D. A.D. is Anno Domini. That means after the birth of Christ. There's been a movement afoot in the world to no longer use B.C. because it stands for the words before Christ. You know what it means now? They put B.C.E., which is before the Common Era. You know, when I see that, I know that I'm either talking to an atheist or a non-believer. And they're kind of probably the same anyway. But anyway, it is written to the members of the congregation which had been scattered abroad as a result of persecution in Jerusalem. This is one of the most famous Jewish books of the New Testament. James's approach is so Jewish it appears to contradict Paul's epistles to the Gentiles. However, a careful examination will show that it is complementary to Paul rather than contradictory. It appears to be based on the Sermon of the Mount. And then compare those different references between James and Matthew, James and Matthew, and James and Matthew. You could have fun doing that. You're welcome to do that, and if any of you want to bring a treatise on that to this class, check with Ken first. No. James wrote during the time of transition in the early apostolic church. The book does not have the fuller doctrinal scope that later New Testament authors developed, since he wrote at the beginning of the New Testament chronologically. And we must bear in mind he was not a believer until after the resurrection, and did not have the benefit of the 3.5-year ministry of Jesus that the apostles had. This introduction information is set forth in verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, greeting. The word greeting, kairine, and that's how it's pronounced, even though it looks different there. It's actually pronounced kairine because I got the Greek right here, so I know what I'm talking about. Kairine is an imperative infinitive. It is a command to have rejoicing as a purpose. As a purpose. There was a character. How many of you are old enough to remember Lil Abner cartoons?
Lil Abner.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a character in there, and I'm not even going to use his name because I'll probably go to what kind of a character he was called, because I'll probably get arrested for it. We're in Southern California after all. But anyway, there was a guy that walked around with a cloud over his head all the time. You know, and we're not that guy. There's no cloud hanging over our head all that time. There isn't. Even in what we consider the most miserable of our times, and I think we can all agree that we've all been there at some time or another. But he's saying your purpose needs to be rejoicing, constantly rejoicing. And then I will tell you, I will remonstrate you, as a matter of fact. I will go beyond that and tell you that the life of a Christian is way, 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 way better than a non-Christian. And I have the voice of experience. I have 44 years as a non-Christian, heathenistic, miserable. I can put a whole bunch of hyphenated words and a few other things in there as well, and I won't. But I won't be teaching anymore if I do that. At least not here. So, the purpose of testing. It is fitting that James should begin his epistle with an explanation of the purpose of testing. Remember, this is addressed to his flock, which has been scattered because of persecution. They have suffered, are suffering, and will suffer further. Excuse me a moment. I'm getting back into the editing business with Dr. Welch, so don't know whether he'll agree with me putting an Oxford comma there or not, but they have suffered, are suffering, and will suffer further. So James deals with that issue first. This section of the epistle can be outlined as follows. Verse 2, consider all testing as a matter of joy. Verse 3, you can if you know what testing will produce. Verse 4, let patience do her thing. Verse 5, ask and trust God for wisdom. Hello, you might want to, well, you don't have your paper copy, but if you get a paper copy of that, you might want to underscore that, bold it, highlight it, and do a few other things. Verse 6, an illustration of weak faith. Verse 7 and 8, a warning to those who lack faith. Verse 9 through 11, both poor and rich are to rejoice in testing. Verse 12, true prosperity. Note, the use of faith as a transitive verb calls, I believe it's supposed to be there, calls for the object to do the work, produce. In salvation, Jesus Christ is the only one who has produced the work necessary for our salvation. Therefore, he is the only object of faith for salvation that does not result in dead faith. Again, Ken, do you notice in the note there on the second line there? You got the word in the Arial font.
Yes.
See that? Those are the kind of things that happen when you translate it from PDF into Word, which is just gee whiz information for, then we're not going to be tested on that, so you can cool your jets on that one. So, so at the next page, consider all testing as a matter of joy. Verse 12 states, would somebody read that off the screen, please?
My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptation. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Count. Oh, just 12. That's it. Or
That's
you
it.
want to read
Yeah,
all
no,
of
that's all. Just that.
it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that word D-I-V-E-R-S, you know, it looks like there's a bunch of people that are out there in the ocean and they're looking for fish under the water, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, divers, but no, it's diverse. Diverse.
All diverse.
Kind of weird. Yeah.
Oh, diverse.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's pronounced the same, but it's the same, but it has different meaning there. Okay. So count comes from the word, wow. Hagiastate. Hagiastate. That means count. Means to bring things. Has it got things on there? Yeah. Yeah, that's the word things. Thank you. What the heck? I might as well edit this while I'm going through it, guys, if you have the patience. Okay?
We do.
Okay. Means to bring things before your mind. Add it up. This word does not mean to simply consider all things as joy. Rather, it means to look at this from a divine viewpoint. Review what God has said about times like this. It all joy. I don't know exactly what he means there, but pasan karen is the Greek. The karen part of that means it's an accusative singular, meaning to maintain a state of inner delight. This word has the same root as the word grace. Charis. Charis is the word grace. In English, we would write that transliterated as C-H-A-R-I-S, charis. This is Qur'an, which is a different version, not Quran. Don't mistake it with Quran. It's Quran. Please. Okay. Okay. Diverse temptations means various trials or afflictions. I have a middle child. He's a son. He's 30 something, 73. No, not 73. I don't know when the heck he was born, but he's 30 some years old.
83?
Huh?
34? 36?
He's about, I don't know.
I was born in 82, I'm 35.
Okay, 36 then. He was born in 83. That's it. Thank you. Can't you get to a point where it doesn't matter. Anyway, this kid started me laughing in the birth room. I mean, literally before the cord was cut, I was already laughing with this guy. He was the second born, and I was already laughing with this guy. And after they cut the cord and the umbilical cord, I was trying to think of what that was. I don't want to get involved with that other word that Ken mentioned last time about whatever that was that I can't remember. You know. Anyway, they let me trim part of that cord off. You know, and I thought it was cool. But to this day, and as recently as 2 days ago, that guy can aggravate the living daylights out of me, and I'll walk away from him and start laughing. You know. And I have to walk away from him because I don't want him to see that I'm having joy with him, you know. In fact, I used to sometimes, back in the old days when it was legal, and besides the statute of limitations is probably expired, I think, when it was legitimate to spank kids, you know, I used to explain to him that I was going to, actually all three of my kids told me the worst part was the lecture preparatory to the actual spanking. You know, the lecture was more than they could bear, more than the spanking, you know, which is okay, as long as it works either way. But I'd have to walk out of a room at least 3 times before I could even administer the spanking because I was laughing. You know, you just can't spank as hard. And my wife had a chopstick about that big. She had a chopstick that was literally, it was about that big because it was for big vats of cooking and stuff like that. You know, but you probably do. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, she would use that because she'd hurt her hand when she spanked them. You know, she couldn't handle it. But, huh?
Teachers and principals used to spank.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Back in the day,
Yeah. All right. See, now you guys got me. Yes, sir.
I had a question about this. Where it says the means of charan, is it
Karan.
has the same root as the word grace?
I'm sorry. Say again, John.
This word has the same root as this word grace.
Yes.
It's not Hassan, Sharan?
No, it's Pasan Karan, and the word Karan is the same sense of as charis, which is grace, but it's a different word. It's like the verb to be, is, are, was. Really? Kind of. It's not even that bad. At least it's kar or something, you know. But it's charis or karan. In this case, when you associate it with a word, when you get into the accusative and what all that stuff means, you pretty much have to have had at least an introduction lesson to Greek to understand that. Now, certainly won't try to explain that here. Yes, sir.
I have a follow-up question about since it's Greek. How important is it to know the Greek language?
How hard is it to know the Greek?
How important is it?
I'm going to give you an opinion, mine, because I'm the one that's here. But you can talk to other people. I think it's imperative. I think it's something that every person really, really ought to know. Any Christian that really wants to become a serious understander, not sure that's good grammar, but understander of the Bible ought to know Greek. And again, for the reason that there are so many English variations of the Bible that you can't always be sure that the translation you're looking at is really a very accurate translation according to the Koine Greek language, which was language that the majority of the Bible was written in. The majority of the New Testament part of the Bible was written in. Okay, I think there's a couple. I think Matthew might have been written in Aramaic, but I don't remember that. But that's yeah. Okay. Yes.
If the Bible was translated word for word,
Mm-hmm.
how many books would it be?
No, I would have to say it would still be 66.
No, how many actual books would it be? 1 or 2 or 3? Because you know how Greek is more complete.
The size of a volume of works doesn't determine whether it's called a book. What determines whether it's called why it's called a book is the title, and it's separate from other titles. That's why we have 66 books of the Bible. So to answer your question as far as how if it was all translated in Greek, first of all, it couldn't be because we're only talking New Testament. The rest of it would have to be done in Hebrew. Mm-hmm. And whatever other languages might have been in the Hebrew continuum of things done. So if you're asking me, would it be this thick or this thick?
It'd be really thick.
Yeah, it'd be thicker. But again, if we made the font small enough, it could be made whatever. Okay, one last question, or we're going to take a break after this question.
Well, I have a follow-up question. How important is it to from a prayer in English to a prayer in Greek?
Personally, I don't think a bit. I don't think it's at all a bit. I don't think it's at all important. Because if you're praying and you're praying from your heart, the Lord understands, period. I will tell you that sometimes when I'm praying and I haven't done a prayer of rebuke to the demons around me, You know, I don't always want them listening to me, but I don't always remember to rebuke them. And so I will speak a spiritual language. The spiritual language comes out of my mouth as what we call in the military gobbledygook. That's a legitimate word, actually. Gobbledygook. The demons don't understand that. But because my thoughts were that word, the Lord understands it because He knows our thoughts. So I do that. But as far as whether you pray to Him in Greek or German or Swahili or Pig Latin or G-Talk or whatever other kind of G-Talk, you guys know G-Talk? Well, that's the guy McGallagher with you. We'll get you go. Yeah, see, I know that one. So,
the actual words.
but the words of your heart are the words that the Lord needs to hear.
Yes.
In regards to the language you're speaking. So let's go back at 10 after. And as close to 10 after as you think your watch says.